My name is Kevin Perry. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Business Development for Innodata. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join today's webinar titled Inkling Habitat. The premier ebook authoring platform has launched. Before we get started, I wanted to review a few housekeeping items and let you know how you can participate in today's webinar. Here we're looking at the GoToWebinar attendee interface, which is made up of two parts. The viewer window on the left, which allows you to see everything the presenter will share on their screen, and the control panel at the right. Within that control panel is how you can participate in today's event. By clicking the orange arrow on the top, you can open and close your control panel. From the View menu, you can also set the control panel not to auto-hide when inactive if you prefer to keep it always open. You may submit your questions or comments in writing during the presentation. We will be reviewing them as they come in, and we'll have a question and answer period after the presentation. Today's webinar is being recorded, and everyone will receive an email with a link to view a recording of today's event. In addition, you can also participate in our Q&A over Twitter. You can tweet your questions to us at Innodata. Meanwhile, we are also live tweeting this webinar. To join us, our hashtag for the webinar is #Habitat. I'd like to do quick introductions. I've already introduced myself. I'd like to introduce Dan. Dan?
Hi there. Thanks, Kevin. My name is Dan Jost. I am the Product Marketing Manager at Inkling, and I work on product marketing for Inkling Habitat.
Great. Andrea Fleck-Nisbet, unfortunately, today could not be here because of sudden travel, but she has provided all relevant content for this webinar, and we appreciate her support for this webinar. So, Innodata and Inkling. Why we chose Inkling and why Inkling chose us. 2 years ago, when we approached Inkling, we didn't realize who they were or what their potential was. They weren't really well known at the time. However, if you were at the digital book world just recently, and more recently, obviously, tools have changed, there's not many people today in the publishing world who do not know who Inkling is. We're delighted to be working and partnering with Inkling. From our standpoint, they're pushing the envelope around discoverability, high-quality features and functions, superior user experience, use of social media, analytics, make them an ideal partner, a strategic partner for our company. Why Inkling chose us? Really three main reasons. Ability to scale. We have over 150 resources working on Inkling titles. Our ability to innovate and drive and reduce the development time from 12 weeks down to 6 weeks over the past year and a half. And our focus on quality with over 1.5 million books, ebooks produced on various platforms, including Inkling, were a natural fit to make their product successful. As many know, it's estimated to go well above 50% in 2013 and into 2014. The growth of tablet ownership is real. It is expanding, as well as the age groups who are using these tablet devices. Many of our clients we interface with continually ask us, should I do it now? What is the ROI? Will I get discovered? These are questions we're going to talk about today in the webinar. And to answer this, you need to recognize that a shift is occurring, and the demands from your clients will drive your future requirements. The big question, are you as proud of your digital content as you are your print content? Well, it's a hard question to answer, but it's a question you need to answer. When we talk to many content owners and editors who have worked in the print world, they feel that there are some limitations when they go digital. Well, I challenge that, and I say I think the opportunities are endless. While you may not be there today, exposure to the functionality found in Inkling can serve as a roadmap where you can take your content to the next level. So I'm going to do a quick poll question here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dan, and we'll go through there. So if we can pop up the poll question. The first question is, what is holding you back most from producing more highly enhanced ebooks? Is it your budget? Is it discoverability? Technical know-how, meaning your technical resources, the ability to have resources to actually produce it, or the lack of multimedia assets? If you could just take a few moments to click on that, and then we'll show the results. Okay, we're going to show the results. So there's a cross mix, budget leading with internal resources being a second, and technical know-how. So we'll cover some of those and address some of those in the webinar today. Okay, moving on. So the couple of the workman titles we're going to share with you today, these are just some of the ones that are famous and pretty well known within the workman. Workman, as many people know, is a company that focuses on lifestyle nonfiction. These are books geared toward using something or experiencing something. As we see here, 1,000 Places to See Before You Die, Beer Tasting, Stitch and Bitch Crochet. These are some of the most popular titles, as well as what to expect when you're expecting. Their goal is to make their books come to life, embedding a community-like experience. I'm going to pass over to Dan now, who's going to share a little bit about Inkling, demo, and walk through some of Habitat, and then talk about how we can get started using the Inkling and Innodata services.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So a little background on Inkling. Inkling is a digital publishing platform really designed to deliver interactive, really beautiful reading experiences that are rebuilt from the ground up for the screen. So whether that screen is a tablet or a phone browser, a phone or a web browser, the Inkling platform really accommodates highly structured, highly illustrated content to create the next generation of digital learning, whether it's in trade or in higher education. So based in San Francisco, we've partnered with many of the major publishers in trade and education markets over the last 3 years, and we've also partnered with Innodata to be able to scale their content for creation and distribution. And it really results, Inkling is really geared towards that native digital experience. So I'll speak a bit about the rebuilding process and what it lets us do. So one of the things that rebuilding content from the ground up lets us do is create a very modular end product. So in Inkling, content is structured in cards rather than in pages. And by structuring content in cards, it lets us create content elements that can be grouped where that content makes sense semantically, rather than in a structure that's limited by the dimensions and the constraints of a page layout, which is really optimized for the print delivery model. By rebuilding content from the ground up, we can also make this content very interactive using enhancements. So we integrate external content such as video and audio and 3D elements, and we also can enhance legacy print content assets using things like guided tours, slide lines, slideshows, integrated assessments, and custom widgets. So all of these enhancements are really designed to help readers better understand the content presented to them. So some of the specific enhancements in the workman titles that we've built include widgets. And widgets are HTML-based custom enhancements that are really geared toward the specific content needs of a title. So in this case, we're looking at a recipe reminder note widget that we created to accompany one of the Ann Burns gluten-free cookbooks. So this is a great example of a widget. There's lots of other ones for those of you who have explored Inkling content. Slideshows, for any publisher of illustrated content, slideshows are a great way to avoid some of those difficult editorial decisions you have to make when you're deciding what visual content to put in a book. Given a print book has certain spatial limitations, just by the nature of page layout, as well as size limitations. And when you have a lot of really beautiful, rich visual content to include, you have to make hard decisions for publishing in print. Well, in Inkling, with a slideshow, you can include a much broader array of pictures and images and art and all of the other things that really engage readers and showcase the beauty in a particular book's art program. We've built a social layer in the Inkling platform, and this social layer really has two components. So there's a social layer for readers so that they can connect with one another while reading an Inkling title. So as I'll show you in a bit, being able to follow your friends' or colleagues' notes and have them follow your notes allows you to connect around the content itself and have discussions, ask questions, and share links. So that's one aspect of the social layer. Another aspect is a fairly recently launched social sharing tool that allows a reader to share specific content elements, whether it's an image or a video or a specific reading card with an Inkling title, to their favorite social network, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, or be able to just email a link to that particular card. And as part of the Inkling Content Discovery platform, readers can view up to 2 of those cards when they click on a link. And so it's a great way to be able to share content that you're reading and experiencing with others and to your larger social network. And finally, we make the content cross-platform in Inkling so that readers can access their content everywhere at any time. So that includes online via web browsers and offline on their phones and on their iPads. So I'm going to transition a bit and just show you some of these titles in the Inkling platform. So I'm going to switch out of our PowerPoint deck for just a bit and pull up an iOS simulator, which you'll see on your screen. So it looks like an iPad here. And what I'll do is go through a couple of these different titles. So you see we have 1,000 Places Before You Die, the very famous Stitch and Bitch title, Tasting Beer, and Cake Mix Doctor Returns. So I'm going to tap into 1,000 Places Before You Die. And so when you tap into an Inkling title, you're given a list of chapters on the left-hand side of the screen. And when you tap into a particular chapter, so in this case I'm in North Africa, you're given a list of all the different cards in that chapter. So you can see very easily at a glance what we call outline view, which is basically all of the visual content and enhancements organized by card. And so I'm going to tap into this particular card here. This is Mount Sinai and the Red Sea. And the core reading experience in an Inkling title is vertical. So you can scroll down, and when you get to the end of a card, the next one pops up. And one of the great things about the platform is that if it looks tappable, it probably is. So you can tap into images, be able to zoom into those images, and see just gorgeous high-res art. Publishers love being able to rebuild their visual content on Inkling just because so many of them have beautiful art programs, and Inkling really does those art programs justice. So I'm going to scroll up again to the previous card and talk a bit about our social layer. So you can see here that I highlighted and made a note on some content. So I'm going to tap that note here. And I had written previously, this is an amazing hike, highly recommended. And my friend Marty from college wrote back and said, thanks, I hiked it last summer. Be sure to leave early in the morning as it gets very hot during the day. Sunrise from the top is the best. So there's an example of how you can have these conversations around the content itself using the social notes feature. Now I can say, oh, that's a great comment, I'll star it, and it'll appear in my notebook on the side of the interface here. So all your notes, highlights, and bookmarks are collected in your notebook. Let's say I'm going to tap into this particular card here, and this shows some Russian Orthodox monks traversing Mount Sinai. So in the upper right-hand corner, I'm going to tap this, and you can see that there's an option to bookmark, add a note, or share this. So when I tap Share, it will pull up a dialog that will let me share either through Facebook or through Twitter or through email, or just copy the link to this particular card to this particular image. And so it's a really easy way to share content across your social networks. And if I were to tap that Twitter button, it would then post directly to my Twitter account if I was signed in. I'm going to go back to my library and pull up Stitch and Bitch. So again, the same core user interface with the chapters on the left, cards on the right. In this case, I'm going to scroll down and tap into this particular card here. It's called Tools of the Trade. And you can see that this is a list of all the different things you need. For those of you who are knitters or have a knitter in your life, you know they have a lot of different tools. And I get down to this particular illustration here. And so I tap into this illustration. You can see that there's some drawings of these different tools, and then there are these bubbles here. And I'm going to tap on one, and you can see that this is what we call a pop tip. And a pop tip essentially is a way to put context-specific, location-specific information for your readers throughout any of the visuals that you've included in an Inkling title. As you can imagine, this has a lot of applications. Here we're using it to explain the different tools you need to successfully start knitting. But you could also imagine this in a scientific illustration or a series of different illustrations that provide more context. You can even include images and links in these pop tips if you'd like. A lot of different possibilities and a lot of creative opportunity there. So tasting beer, subject near and dear to my heart. When you click into Chapter 4 here, I'm going to click into beer color. And again, we're presented with a card here. And I'm going to click into this particular card. And this is what we call a slide line. And a slide line is an example of one of the enhancements that we'll talk a little bit later that we call blueprints. And a blueprint essentially is a structured way of enhancing content. So this particular blueprint, this enhancement, allows you to move your finger, in this case my cursor, but your finger across the bottom of your screen to see the progressive changes in beer color according to how they're delineated in the American Beer Color Scale. So it's one great way to be able to to build in that extra level of interactivity for your readers and provide a visual cue to the different gradations of beer. Again, a lot of different applications across both trade and education titles. Finally, I'm going to jump out and jump into the Cake Mix Soccer. And here, this is a title that's a very, very popular title, especially for those who are on a gluten-free diet. And I'm going to jump into this brownie recipe. And you can see that in addition to a lot of elegant structure that's been built into this particular recipe, at the very end of the recipes, there is a recipe reminder note. So if I'm making this recipe for the first time, I can open up the recipe reminder notes and then type in, made this for my family last Christmas. And then you can say, don't be sure to preheat the oven. And all the other different types of reminders that inevitably you'd be making in a print cookbook, you can make and save here. So it's a really great way to annotate those recipes and have them for later. So that's a very quick overview of some of the different titles that we built in collaboration with Innodata and Workman for the Inkling platform. So I'm going to switch back now to our slide deck. And talk a bit about how we actually build content for the Inkling platform. So when we first started Inkling, and we first started building our first few titles, we sat back and looked at a broad range of print illustrated content, books like cookbooks and guidebooks and textbooks, and we gently pulled them apart to think about all the moving pieces that go into those books in print format. And we realized that print books are actually pretty involved and quite complex. You have sidebars, you have images, gutter bleeds, headers, and a whole variety of other structural devices to help readers navigate and read that content effectively. And so a question we asked ourselves really was, how do we accommodate this level of structure and provide those signposts for effective reading while still delivering a beautiful reading experience and making use of all of the creative possibilities that digital delivery provides? So we decided at that point that we needed to build a production environment. So we built Inkling Habitat. And it's the world's only collaborative production environment designed specifically for professionals. And as I'll show you in just a bit, the tools that we built into Inkling Habitat allow for a very collaborative and communicative production workflow, a whole set of creative opportunities to create beautiful interactive content, and then the means to scale all of that content for cross-platform distribution. So a couple of the core elements that we've been using for the last couple of years and which we've just recently opened up to the publishing industry to start using First of which is a drag and drop table of contents builder. So if you think about how you currently want to make changes to a digital book in whatever ebook format you are building in, it can be quite challenging. You might have to go back to the original source files and make a lot of changes and then convert those again. Well, because of the card-based nature and the flexible format of Inkling, we've created a way to be able to build out your table of contents, reorganize the structure, and add new elements just by dragging and dropping. The table of contents is dynamic, and all of the different cards in an Inkling title represent the underlying files, and being able to move those files around, create links between them, and add and remove content with these was a big goal. So I look forward to showing you that. Ticketing. So for those of you who are in the production workflow space now or have built a book, you know that keeping track of all the different files and communicating with your team members, whether they're in the same room or halfway across the globe, and making sure that revisions and changes and tasks within a project are tracked and assigned accordingly can be a real challenge. And so ticketing is our solution to be able to let work groups, whether they're under the same roof or dispersed, communicate effectively and collaborate effectively across the course and life cycle of a project. So tickets are particularly effective because they provide a level of specificity. So if you think about wanting to communicate around the content itself, you can highlight specific content elements by ticketing those elements in a card and then assigning those tickets to specific individuals for response and resolution. So in addition to specificity, transparency is a key part of ticketing. All tickets that are associated with a specific revision are marked as such, and each team member can see all of the ticketing communication in the current and past revisions. Tickets also provide a level of accountability. So for those of you who are project managers or production managers, you need to make sure that everyone is rowing in the same direction to get a title finished. And tickets can be assigned to targeted individuals on a team. And the status of closed and open and fixed issues are available for everyone to see. So you can know exactly who has and has not done what's been assigned to them. Editing content and code is a key part of content creation within Inkling, within Inkling Habitat. So content in Inkling Habitat is considered software. And one of the things that we wanted to do is be able to let technical and non-technical users alike edit content within a particular card, and then also be able to look under the hood and make adjustments to the code itself. The code, as you'll see in a bit, is all standards-based web technologies. So all the content in an Inkling title is built in HTML and CSS, including the styling, design rules, and all of the content in the cards themselves. So what that means is that if you're a web developer or a designer currently working on projects and you're familiar with HTML and CSS, you can transfer those skills very easily to working within Habitat. And it also allows a work group of comprised of technical and non-technical users alike to be able to work on both the content, code, and editorial processes. And then finally, the build to multiple devices was a key goal for us. If you think about how you build content now, if you're building for different devices and screen sizes, you may be creating multiple versions of your digital content or going through multiple production processes to get placement on all those different devices. We wanted to avoid this, and so we built out a very streamlined and efficient building process that not only lets you build content once and then publish to the store for multiple formats, but also be able to build to multiple devices for testing throughout the entire life cycle of a project. So when you build a title throughout the course of a project, everyone in your work group will have that product available within their Inkling account. And then you can also loop in people outside of your work group, such as authors or other colleagues who may be interested in the progress of a particular Inkling title. You can loop them in, and then they can have that pushed directly to their own accounts. So let's take a quick look and see some of these tools that I've mentioned up close. So I'm going to transition back out of our slide deck here and pull up Inkling Habitat. So I've logged into Inkling Habitat, and the first screen that you see after you log in is what we call the dashboard. And so the dashboard is a collection of all the different projects you're working on within Habitat, and it gives you a sort of a universal view of all the tickets that are open and fixed and requiring attention, as well as any warnings or errors that emerged when you last built the title, as well as the latest draft of the title that you've built. So I'm going to jump into one of Edie Ekman's crochet titles. She's a very popular author for the crafting community. And I'm going to click on Collection 3 here. And so when you click into an Inkling title within Inkling Habitat, you're given a list of chapters along the left-hand side of the screen. And when you click into a particular chapter, you see all the different cards that are built into that particular chapter. So you can see that there's an inherent hierarchy and structure available. And then when you click on a particular chapter title, you're given an overview, which shows you all of the different cards that comprise that particular chapter. You can see the length of those cards, as well as the content and the styling elements in each card. So at the very top, you're given a set of options here for viewing, and this is one of the, I think one of the most important and effective tools within Habitat is device preview. So right now, if you want to see how your content will look on different devices, you might have to build it and then test it on those devices. But device preview in Habitat actually lets you see how that content is going to display across different devices without ever leaving the production environment or interrupting your workflow. So I just selected web at 100%, so I'll bump that up to 110%. You can see that the content adjusted slightly in accordance with that particular device. But now I want to go down to iPhone Portrait. So you can see that the content automatically adjusts using responsive design technologies to show you how it's going to appear on a much smaller screen size of an iPhone. If you'd like to see it at full size, you can adjust that as well. And at a glance, you can scan the entire chapter to see all of the different cards. And if you're a production editor or designer, you can highlight different design elements or a particular style rule that's not formatting correctly. And so this allows you, at a glance, to see all the different key components. So I'm going to jump into a particular card here, and I'll jump to proof mode. So what is proof mode versus edit mode? We have two different ways of looking at content within Inkling Habitat. One is proof, which we're looking at now, and then there's a button to the left of proof in the upper left here where my cursor is called edit. And each of these does what you'd expect. One allows you to proof really effectively, and one allows you to edit really effectively. And so we're clicked into border number 31 under Collection 3, which is the chapter numbering and card naming structure within this title. And at the very top of this TOC is an edit button. So I'm going to click that. And that's going to bring me into our drag and drop table of contents editor. So when you are in this particular mode, you can scroll down and see all of the different chapter titles, and you can open up each chapter to see the individual cards that are included in each chapter. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you see a list of the different cards that you can bring in and build out structure within your title. So these include the core reader cards, which provide the core reading experience when you tap into a chapter. But then it also includes a lot of the different image cards and enhancements, what we call blueprints, that you can also build into the chapter as well. So I'm going to drag and drop a reader card directly into Collection 3. And you can see that this reader card now appears at the bottom, the long chapter, at the bottom of this particular chapter. And then I'm going to build out a slideshow, and I'm going to have that slideshow be included as part of that reader card. So I drag that slideshow onto the reader card, and I'm going to click on the reader, and you can retitle it very easily. And I'll just call this border number 51, just for consistency's sake. Myself, I'm not a knitter, so I'm a little at sea as to what these different borders actually mean. But border number 51, slideshow. So I'll title these, and then I'll hit Save Changes. And so while this is saving, I'll speak a bit about how effective this can be. So not only can you build out your chapter and even unit structure with the drag and drop table of contents editor, but once you've built it out, if you'd like to make changes or reorder things, it's very easy to do in the same way. You just drag and drop and restructure content. And that content structuring provides a nice level of hierarchy, all of which is reflected in the underlying code. So speaking of underlying code, let's go back to the collection number 3, and we're going to go down to that new reader card that I created here. The very end of this list, I'm going to click on border number 51. It's going to pull up a card, and you can see that there's some template content here. This is sort of dummy content that we provide when you build out a new reader card or build out different blueprints within a particular title. You can see here that the dummy content actually reflects the structure that's defined by the underlying CSS. So one of the things that you need to do when you're building content is to make sure to have someone that's familiar with HTML and CSS, or even better, partner with Innodata, who's been trained in building out the style sheets and all of the content strategies that we're discussing here, so that they can help you get to that point of having exactly the design, styling, and structure that you need for your particular content. So you can see here that there's H2, H3 heading. So I'm going to click on Edit here. And now this card opens up in the center panel. And then on the right, you can see that there's code. So for those of you who aren't technical and aren't familiar with HTML, don't fear. It's actually quite easy to work with. So I'm going to click on Title of Card, and you can see that my cursor automatically goes to the H1 heading here. So I'll call this border number 51. And then just below that, I can click on H2 and call that Things to Remember. So note here that the styling that's been defined by the style sheets, by the CSS, carries over, so that if you have all caps in your particular style sheets, or if you have a particular font choice, all of that will be maintained even when you add new cards. When you click through, it's quite easy to add images. So I'm going to click on that image, and it pulls up an image picker here. And I can scroll through and see two things. When you upload a new asset, if you have an asset on your own hard drive, or if anyone in your work group has an asset on a drive, you can upload that directly to the cloud, or you can pick content that's already been uploaded to the cloud itself. So what that means is that because this is a cloud-based production environment, no matter where you are in the world, you can upload and add assets to a project into the asset cloud, and then be able to place those throughout a particular title. So it's a great way to centralize that asset pool and really make it an effective, efficient way, so you don't have to be FTPing different versions of content back and forth and wondering if the asset that you've uploaded is the latest one. You can also filter by file name and search for assets. So I'm going to select this particular image here, and I'm going to place it. And so you can see it automatically appears within your card, and then you can also click on this information and title it, provide a caption, a citation, as well as all the other different types of information that, that you'd like to include. So I'm going to click Save Changes here. And one of the very easy things, because this is all built out using HTML, this HTML can then scale so that you can include new paragraphs very easily by just including sort of the classic standard paragraph HTML tags. So any of the styling that you'd like to do can be very easily edited also with commonly used HTML style tags. So I'm going to switch back, and now you can see that Here's the slightly edited card that we worked on in edit mode, now is in proof mode. And I'm going to jump down back to that other element that we added, which was the slideshow. So I clicked into the slideshow here, and you can see that just like we add template content to new reader cards, we also add template images to slideshows. And this is a very simple but easy example to see how you can build out that added level of interactivity and added visual content within your title. So I'm going to click on edit mode again, and this opens up the panel on the right, which gives you the title and caption information. So I could say border examples, and then here I'm going to replace this image. So I click on replace image, it pulls up the asset picker, and I'm going to choose this particular example, and I'll hit select. So I've uploaded this before, and now here's the example of this particular border. So I'm going to click on the next slide in the slideshow, and I can do the exact same thing. And if I wanted to add a subcaption to each one of these, I could say, this is great for quilts. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I'm going to put that there for an example. So I'll scroll down, and I'm going to choose another border here, this one a little more colorful. So I'll select that, and I'll upload that. And then you can do the same thing for the third image here, too. So you can see it's super easy to be able to get assets into the system and then place them wherever. And if I wanted to add a fourth image here, too, I could do so as well. And I'll just select this one here. Great. So that's an actual pattern. So that's how, a very simple example of how you can build out visual appeal and then flex your visual content to move in new directions using Inkling Habitat, all using very non-technical means and using absolutely no code in this case. So I'll go back to proof. You can see that we can click through our slideshow very easily. Let me go back to the top of collection 3 and jump into border 31 again. So one of the things you note in proof mode is that in the upper right, you have a button that says New Ticket, as well as some information directly below that ticket. It says here, closed, assigned to Jennifer Skeen, my colleague. I'm going to click on that. You can see that it brings me automatically to this particular ticket that was filed in a previous revision, R412. It's indicated that that's a previous revision. Now we're in R864. You can actually roll back and see the previous revision if you'd like. And you can see that there's a question here. There's a query, and my colleague Jennifer wrote back, added to the list of PQs, and then she closed the ticket. So it was assigned to her, and it says status closed. Let's say I'm proofing this, but I want to actually open up a new discussion because I found something that I wanted to change here. So I highlight the content, and I click New Ticket. It automatically places the ticket directly on the content itself, being very specific as to what I'm highlighting. And I'll say, let's change to, say, work 2 treble crochets into the front loop. Now, this is an example of a very simple change that I could go in and make myself in edit mode, but for the purposes of today's demo, you can see here that you can ask questions really around any content. So if it involves something more complex, someone like a non-technical author or production editor or someone who is relying on the skills of others in the work group can ask questions. So I have an open ticket, and I'm going to assign it to Jen Skeen again because I know that she's the production editor for this particular title in our hypothetical work group. And I'm going to hit Done. And so now, in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that there's one open ticket, and 2 tickets have been assigned to Jen. Now let's say that she comes in and says, okay, wait, so I need to save my change. So I'll save this change here. And she can come in and say, fixed, please verify. And so she can change the status to fixed, hit done, and hit change again. Great. So the changes have been saved. You can see that there's one fixed, and she could even assign it back to me. So I'll hit save again. And now you can see that I have one fixed ticket that I'm assigned to, and then I need to go in and close it. So it's a very simple example of how ticketing promotes and fosters collaboration directly within the workflow for any title in Inkling Habitat. So very finally, I'll just go to our build dialog and quickly explain it. I won't actually build this out, but I'll open up our builds, and I'll say, yep, I don't want to save my changes. That's OK. So now I went in the upper left-hand corner, and I selected builds, and this brings us to the build history for this particular title. And one of the great things about the build history is that it can show you at every point in the process where your title has been built, whether it's been in a release version, a draft version, and then it also allows you to see if there are any errors in the content structure, if there are any programming errors, or things that would make it potentially not function appropriately in the Inkling platform. So it's a great way to see the status, the revision history, as well as the build history. And when you click build, it will pull up the build for web and iOS, and you can build out draft versions of a title at any point in the production process and share those with your work group. And let's say you have an author who's really keen to know and see exactly the progress that's happening on his or her title. You can add those individuals to the distribution by putting in the email that's associated with their Inkling account. They'll automatically get notified by their Inkling iOS app that there's a content update that's available for download. Or if they log into Inkling for Web, it will automatically appear in their library. This is also the way that publishers can push content updates to users who've purchased content through the Inkling store. So if there's changes to a particular content because of recent data or updated photos, or if they'd like to push out new interactive elements to a particular title, they can use the build process to build out that content and then push that content to their users, who will automatically be notified within the iOS app to download that content. Note here in the upper left that there's also a build to EPUB option. And this is something that we have seen a lot of interest from publishers. So once you've placed your Inkling title in the Inkling store, you can then build to an EPUB3 file for third-party royalty-free distribution. The visual elements, the basic visual elements within an Inkling title, such as images, will be supported. Some of the Inkling-specific enhancements, such as slide lines and guided tours, we cannot promise support by third-party EPUB readers. There's a real diversity in the market of how EPUB is rendered across all the different readers. So while we can promise that all of those will work beautifully within the Inkling platform, the EPUB itself is valid according to the IDPF EPUB3 spec, and it's available for you to take and put in any other storefront for distribution. So we make that content very portable and very flexible for you, depending upon your specific distribution needs. So that's a very quick overview of Inkling Habitat and the core features. And we have a series of webinars for both current builders and potential builders that we host every week at inkling.com/habitat. You can sign up for those webinars, and we'd love to show you even more in depth how those specific features work. So I wanted to speak a bit to how you can get started working with Inkling Habitat and working with Innodata. So Inkling Habitat is free, it's openly available, and you can sign up today at inkling.com/habitat to start building content with your colleagues and teammates at your respective publishers. You can also partner with Innodata for a complete production solution. And this is something that has become very popular for a lot of publishers when they look at their resource base, their technical skill level, and also their content library scale. They can partner with Innodata to make use of all of the different resources that Innodata has developed to bring Inkling content to market. We've been working with Innodata for the last 2 years, and they have, their teams are trained in all of the different features and functions of Habitat to be able to build out your content in the environment. You can also combine in-house content enhancement with Innodata services. So one of the things that Innodata can provide is what we call a core conversion, so a core conversion of existing legacy print assets. And then your team can work with that core converted title and enhance that content using the various blueprints and enhancement tools in-house. So there's a lot of different ways to work with Innodata and a lot of different possibilities.
Great, Dan. Thank you. There are also ways to get free consultation in working with Innodata. If you go to this link here and you click on the Start Here, there'll be a registration for a free consultation. For the first 25 people who do access that and participate and have a consultation, we're going to provide you a free Workman title on the Inkling platform. So if you have a chance to visit there, by all means register, and we'd love to just talk to you about what you're doing and what you're thinking about doing as it relates to the Inkling platform. And lastly, here is the total list of some of the Workman titles. They're constantly adding new content types, but these are the ones that are available today. So this gives you an idea of the different giveaways that will be there. And we're also going to go into Q&A. We've got actually a ton of questions, which is good. It's very active. We had about 140 people or so attend today, so we appreciate everyone's participation. So why don't we get right into it? Let's start with the big one, and this will be for Dan. What's the difference between Inkling versus IBA? And so if you could talk a little bit about that, and then, do I really need a production partner? Or could I just do this on my own, is the second question.
So that's a great question. So I think the core difference between Inkling and iBooks Author is one of scale and collaboration. So iBooks Author does provide interactivity. You can definitely create certain levels of interactivity. But in both the process of creating that and then in the actual output, I think there are two key differences. So first of all, iBooks Author is a client-side downloaded software so that you install it on your computer and then you start building content. What that means is that the workflow is very, very siloed. So if you think about how many of you, especially those of you who are on a work group at a publisher, that digital content that you create is rarely done just by one person. Any project of any scale and especially of any complexity requires at least more than one person and at least a team to be able to get that into the marketplace. And so I think the tools that I've shown today in Inkling Habitat demonstrate that we've really designed this to allow you to work effectively and efficiently with your team members to build out interactive content, and especially to work with your team on content libraries. So iBooks Author allows you to do that, but it tends to, it's focused very much on an individual creating content, and then you're still left with a lot of the challenges of FTPing content back and forth, as well as maintaining revision histories of those particular elements. The second main difference is platform support. So right now when you build content in iBooks Author, it's only available for iPad, and so it's basically, or iOS I should say, and so it's limited to one particular platform. Right now we have content available when published through Inkling on iOS, on the web, and then later this year we'll be on Android as well. So Inkling is platform agnostic in terms of the reading experience, and the way that we've built the content and the way that you can build content, it will scale to multiple platforms and be future-proofed for other platform placement down the road.
Great. Thanks, Dan. There was another question here It says, very interesting. Is there any way to organize content less linearly than chapters or units? For example, to let the reader see everything about a particular country or everything about climate change, where content might fit in both categories. Thanks.
Yeah, so one of the ways that you can do that is through creating very dynamic links. An example, actually, I encourage you to download 1,000 Places You Should See Before You Die, because at the very end of that particular title, we did a thematic organization so that you can go through and navigate the content by themes rather than by structure of chapter and then cards within chapters. So, and by country and region of the world there. So there's a lot of flexibility in how content is structured. And one of the great things about building content in Inkling Habitat is that there's a level of granularity for linking to other content throughout the title that's unparalleled. Each individual paragraph has a unique identifier when you build content in Inkling Habitat. And that unique identifier can serve as a destination for a link from anywhere else within a title. So that means that you can be very, very targeted in where you're sending readers and how they get there and the overall navigation structure.
Okay. Good. The next one is what type of books is the Inkling platform most appropriate for? We publish graduate school textbooks that don't have interactive content.
That's a great question. So you think of digital books really fall into two camps right now, or digital book content. One is what we refer to as sort of the $10 text file, which is your basic words on a screen, Kindle or basics iBook title. So that's the words on a screen. It reflows. That's a relatively easy problem to solve for, and to be fair, Amazon solved for that quite elegantly about 4 or 5 years ago. That's not really the sort of material that Inkling is best suited for. Inkling is solving for a much harder problem, which is how do you create highly structured or highly illustrated content and create a beautiful reading experience out of that. So interactivity is one part of that picture. So if you have interactive elements living outside the book, like audio or video, that's great. But if you have, let's say, textbook content where you have more rigidly structured, with headers and sidebars and visuals, translating that into Inkling is a much easier process than translating it into other platforms, which are really designed for that sort of words on a screen experience. So you can create a great reading experience that doesn't have to have a lot of enhancements, but the core elements of the content and experiencing the visuals will be far better than anything else that the reader would be able to experience in another platform.
Yeah, and to add to that, Dan, I mean, for publishers who might not have that level of interactivity, they traditionally have not thought of what enhancements or interactivity they could be doing. And so what's interesting, what we're also seeing is that publishers have to become more multimedia folks who are producing those types of content that can be published to the platform. So we're seeing that trend and that shift going on, and to look for that rich content.
And just to follow on that, when you sign up for an Inkling Habitat account, 2 titles are automatically placed in your account. One is the Habitat User Guide, and the other is a title appropriately called Creating Interactive Content. And it's really a content strategy guide to help you think very elastically about what the translation process from print into Inkling looks like and all the different creative possibilities.
Great. Yep. Excellent. We're going to do a quick poll question because we got a couple more minutes, and then we have a couple more questions that we're going to answer. So why don't we go there now? I think it's appropriate based on the last question. So which enhancement is most critical for your content? Disregard the cross-platform. Please select one: video, audio, animation, hotspots, pop tips, slideshows, self-assessments, social media, cross-platform compatibility. And so we'll pause here to let people respond to that. right, we're just waiting. People are still going, voting. All right, so we're going to lock it down. A couple more minutes, a couple more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, good. Let's show the results. So we had an interesting cross-platform compatibility in video, audio, animation leading the charge. Good. All right, that's an interesting poll. Okay, the last we have a couple more minutes. We'll keep going. I know this webinar will end in a few minutes. We will stay on as long as we can try to address as many questions as we can, but there will be we will be following, and there's some Twitter following this webinar. You can keep asking those questions if we don't get to address all of them. One question is, do I really need a production partner, or can I do this on my own? Let me tackle that one. The answer to that is simple. You could do it on your own, but there are, like anything else, there will be challenges with that from a scale perspective. Also, we've been doing this now for almost 2 years, and the number of resources that we have right now, north of 150, and the fact that we've been able to really trim the time it takes to actually produce the titles, that doesn't come overnight. And so, with Habitat, you could do it yourself, but what we're finding is that as partners and as customers and publishers get into it, they turn to us for support, and we work with them and have found that to be most successful. So I think that addresses that question. So all right, let's see, we've got a couple more here. Dan, this one is for you. Are all of our assets stored on Inkling's server? And I think this is coming for, could be a non-publisher who's more of a corporation that might be interested in the platform.
Yeah, so the assets are stored in the production process. The assets are stored on the Inkling server. That said, all of the content is available to be, so you can upload content either through the asset picker, or if you go in the back end of the equation, you can go in through what we use is Subversion for content management. So you can actually do more bulk uploads into Subversion on the back end of the platform. That said, all of the content can then be downloaded. So if, let's say, you are creating content in HTML and CSS, and all of those files exist.
Oh, it looks like Dan might have got disconnected. Let's give him a second to come back. Okay. Looks like there was a drop-off. I think he'll be back. Why don't we turn to one more poll question while we wait for Dan to come back? And the poll question coming up in a second. In the next calendar year, do you plan to ramp up your ability to sell more enhanced ebooks? Yes or no? All right. We want to lock that down. Okay, so it sounds as though a lot of people are interested in taking their books to the next level, and as far as enhancements, so that's encouraging. That's great to see. Okay, good.
Great. Hey, Kevin, I just dropped off there, but I'm back.
Okay, great.
I can complete that. I complete that thought. So, yep. Apologies. So all of your content is stored on our servers. When users are using their iOS app for Inkling, they download content locally to their iOS devices. The only thing that isn't accessed locally is video. That is streamed from the Inkling content servers to in the reading process. For corporations and for businesses who have more questions, you can email us at habitat@inkling.com for specific questions about corporate use and potential internal use. We do have an enterprise level of engagement and Habitat use, which is a very customized, needs-specific implementation of Habitat. And that usually requires a conversation to learn much more about your specific needs. So if you're interested in learning more, email us at inkling.com/habitat or habitat@inkling.com. Or you can also go to inkling.com/habitat where we have a lot more information about that too.
Great. So we just come up on the hour. It's 2 o'clock. I want to thank everyone for your time today and the opportunity to talk about Inkling and Innodata and Workman. And again, if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. We will be, as we said, we will continue over Twitter and over the next hour, and we'll respond to your questions. So thank you very much. Have a good day.